the next one right here. This is a new topic right here. Let's talk about CBS Sports list Derek Carr as a tier 4 quarterback in NFL's middle class. Now, stop me if you heard this before. We've had several shows on it. We covered it on our Patreon special when we talked about the statistics of Derek Carr. And a lot of the reason why Derek Carr gets the middle of the pack quarterback comment is simply because a lot of people don't view him as a playoff quarterback. Like, what has he done from a playoff perspective? He hadn't won any games. He hadn't lead his team deep into the playoffs, and a lot of that is, he gets saddled with a lot of the blame, even though he's a quarterback. He don't play defense. He don't kick any field goals. He's just only the quarterback of your team. So, but this is how people view it, whether you like it or not. So he understands that as well. There have been interviews where we've seen or heard from Derek Carr where he talks about chips on his shoulder. And we know he mentioned the Raider commentary, but a lot of people, feel that way about Carr. Now, me personally, I wasn't too, when we first heard about Carr, I wasn't a guy that was like, okay, we got Derek Carr. We knew eventually we was going to get him because the Saints were kind of just like milling about, and we knew that they were trying to get him traded to the team, and then he kind of buffs that away, and then he comes back and he flips to the side and comes back around and then says, hey man, guess what? Um, I kind of had a chip on my shoulder how everything played out last year for me, and it is what it is. But I'll tell you what, before we finish up this article, because you've seen Mike Thomas, we covered it. We played interviews by Mike Thomas. We covered pieces that were written on words that were laid out by Michael Thomas about his wanting to get Derek Carr here, and the fact that during the mini camps and all this kind of stuff, you've seen Michael Thomas and Carr constantly talking. They're talking, and to each other when they're not on the field. They're talking about plays. They're talking about how do you like this play? What to look for here? What to look for there? And you seeing that happening with Michael Thomas. And listen, I believe Michael Thomas will play this year, and I think Michael Thomas will play more than 10 games for the Saints this year. Might come as a surprise for some because we hadn't seen him that much, but eventually you'll see him more than what we didn't see him over the last 3 years, right? Because of the contract, and this is a show me year. But it's Michael Thomas on one side, and there are other people as well. Case in point, guys like Chris Olave. Chris Olave recently went on the Richard Sherman show, and he talked about his relationship or his connection and his thoughts on Derek Carr. And I think let's play that right now, family, and we'll get back to the article. Here we go.
Guys that you guys had last year, has there been any, chemistry between you guys throughout OTAs and all that?
Oh hell yeah, we've been brewing up, we've been cooking up. I feel like it's just getting better and better. Just being on the field together, staying consistent, and that's how everybody build chemistry though. Just getting those reps and continuous repetition. I feel like we all know what he could do on the field, but he helps me a lot off the field too. Just a leader he is, and just his vibes he come with. I feel like always makes a young player better. So I'm excited to play with him.
And y'all got another big guy coming back in Michael Thomas. He's in y'all room. He's been a great receiver in the league for a long time. What advice and what, kind of mentorship has he given to you?
He always been mentoring me since I got drafted, and he always looked out for me, man. Just everything on and off the field, just finding a crib in New Orleans or just finding a chef, just all the little things that takes your game to the next level. Just body treatment, all the little stuff, and he really behind the scenes, but man, he did so much for me in my rookie year. I can't even explain. I'm excited to be able to play with him again too, man. He worked so hard, and we all know what he could do on the field when he's healthy too. He's one of the best receivers in the NFL, if not the best. And I'm excited to play with him again.
Quarterback. All right, so there you go. We talk about that, man, and he makes mention of that as well, and talks about his relationship with Michael Thomas. And this is also a very good dynamic here. We talk about the when we deal with the Carr situation, you have to add the Michael Thomas thing to it. We talk about Chris Olave coming into his sophomore season, as well as Rashid Shaheed, both players that are from the West Coast that Michael Thomas, who has taken under his wing, he's really big on both Rashid Shaheed and Chris Olave. It's big because during Michael Thomas's time here in New Orleans, a lot of the great records, and this is something that I'll never take away from Michael Thomas, or people can't take away from Michael Thomas, is the fact that he did a lot of this thing without a serious, uh, I guess, compliment. There you go. That's the proper word I'm looking for. Without having a really good, solid compliment wide receiver next to him. Like you had Jerry Rice for many years, had John Taylor next to him. You know what I'm saying? And eventually, down the line, as he got older, you've seen other players, roll into that thing. But that's never been the case with Michael Thomas. He's always been that guy. And for many years, several years, he had Traquan Smith as a compliment, if you can picture that crap, which you don't really have to picture it because we done been through it. Let's not think about it. But I say that about Carr as we bring it back here because this kind of adds layers to the comment about him and what he'll do here. Now, we knew he had good, fantastic players in the offense with the Raiders. That was one of the most, probably it was the most talented area of that team for many years when he was there, was the fact that that offense had players, had really good players like Josh Jacobs and Devontae Adams and Darren Waller. Those guys were phenomenal. They were phenomenal players, and they attempted to build the team more so. It's a different, and I'm not saying that because we're who that nation, but I'm being real. If you look at Carr and you study the film, you don't even have to use your imagination. To be honest with you, you can just study the film on Carr and expect, if he brings just that, what he had along with the weapons the Saints have, I mean, um, he'll have phenomenal success here. And like this. And I was talking to a fellow today. Shout out to Kevin, man. Shout out to Kev. We were having this conversation, man, about you know Carr coming here, and not we're not coming. And then Drew Brees was in a commentary about Drew leaving San Diego to come here, and the expectation. A lot of people didn't see Drew Brees coming here winning the championship, even though the Saints were high on Drew Brees when he first stepped through the door. We knew we had a smart quarterback, but we thinking like we're going to win a lot of games and and build this team up, and they did that. But for Drew Brees to take it from what he was when he started here, when he was drafted by the Chargers and gets pushed out of the door by the drafted in Phillip Rivers, and then ultimately hits free agency right after his injury occurred, hits free agency, chooses Miami over the Saints, and then Miami decides to go with Culpepper over Drew. Drew then comes to New Orleans, the year after Katrina, to help build the team moving forward. And the Saints really had to build that offense up. That's the year we had Reggie Bush with the draft pick and all that. And the Saints had to really reconstruct the entire offense around Drew Brees. And it was not nearly as talented as what the Saints have given Carr. Could you imagine what if the Saints if the Saints would have laid out the type of lineup for Drew Brees when he first stepped in the door as a free agent versus, what they've given Carr? And you have a very good Michael Thomas. Even though Michael Thomas has missed a lot of games over the last 3 years, he's also missed a lot of abuse from the NFL. He hadn't taken a lot of hits and abuse from the NFL over the last 3 years because he hadn't played that much. He was rehabbing. So his body didn't have to suffer a lot of the aggression or the violence over that 3 year span, right? So that's a positive for the Saints if we're looking at it. Chris Olave's drafting because of the influence of Michael Thomas. So if you really think about it, when you're dealing with Derek Carr, the one constant that keeps popping up here in the offense is Michael Thomas. Dennis Allen first went, when he got the job, he went out to California and spoke with Michael Thomas because as soon as he got the job, rumors started circulating around that Michael Thomas, that the Saints were going to trade him. So Dennis Allen did a very smart and proactive thing. I'm giving him credit. He went out there, talked to Michael Thomas, told him he wants him to be a part of the team, and asked what he can do. Michael Thomas told Dennis Allen to draft Chris Olave. Dennis Allen then traded several first-round picks to move up. to get Chris Olave to give him to the Saints offense to pair him with Michael Thomas, which forms a fantastic combo. Then, of course, injuries happen to the Saints wide receiver room, the guys like Jarvis Landry and people like that last year, and Deontay Harris Harty, which gave Rashid Shaheed an opportunity to be seen. And look where he is now. And once again, the constant is Michael Thomas talking and pushing for the Saints and bringing in Derek Carr into the team, bringing in Chris Olave into the team, working with Rashid Shaheed. Michael Thomas has been phenomenal in handling his business and being that cement to kind of bring this offense together. So let's get it. And I say all that to kind of, and I played the interview, just kind of, add a little veneer to the conversation, because often people are looking at Carr from a Raider perspective, and I guess that's fine based on the fact that that's all we have right now, right? As opposed to some of the things that we've seen over, the last several weeks of these different training sessions and mini camps that we've seen him in with the red jersey, as you can see on the screen. It is his team. The thing that I realize about the Carr signing is it brings an exciting brand of football to New Orleans. The Saints have quick strike ability now on their offense, where they have guys more than one wide receiver that can get up the field very fast, and the Saints can score quick on teams or get back into games. They're never out of games. They're never going to be a threat to be out of games. As the score is 14-0 and we losing to some other team, the Saints have the quick ability to kind of get back into this thing. But I digress. The Drew Brees commentary versus Carr, insofar as free agent walks through the door with the Saints. It took several years for the Saints to build a solid offense around Drew. Carr walks through the door in year 10 with supreme talent all around him at every position. At every position. You see, wide receiver, running back. It's just amazing. We have the wide receiver room, as for mentioned, we talked about them. Even some of the reserve guys are going to be special. We talk about the running back room. Elvin Kamara. You have Jamal Williams, who had 17 rushing touchdowns here. Him and Elvin Kamara together is ridiculous. And then you add Kendre Miller there. This guy had 16 rushing touchdowns last year in college. Kendre Miller from TCU. Then the tight end room. That was the big question mark room in terms of what happens there. So it was the Saints patiently waited, and shout out to Foster Moreau, who recently revealed that he is good on the cancer thing. That is absolutely phenomenal. Shout out to you, and blessings goes to Foster Moreau, the hometown kid, because the man, let me tell you something, man. Cancer is real. Shout out to my people out there. Much love and blessings to Sean and the rest of my people out there. But listen, cancer is real. Whether you got people that's going through it and they got people that's defeating it every day, it's an inspiration to people that's going through it, and their family members and loved ones that's going through it with them. When you see somebody whip that thing, that is an inspiration, man. It really is. That can never be undersold, man. That is the true and realest epidemic that is going on in this country right now that they're not putting enough push under. But anyway, Carr, back to him. And that's something I was just throwing out there. We had this talk today, and I was like, damn, that's true. It took years for the Saints to build up a really good special offense with Drew at the helm. Carr gets it in year 10 walking through the door. So let's see what he does with it. That'll be the biggest thing. So back to the article. Saints brought in veteran quarterback Carr. They're moving mixed reactions across the league. Brinson of CBS Sports gave it a nod to Carr towards the leagues called the middle class. Brinson created tiers for the NFL quarterbacks and placed every projected starter in one. Those categories were tier 1, the big 3, tier 2, could join them next year, tier 3, intrigued with question marks, tier 4, you can win with them, 5, future potential with them guys, 6, no clue man, and 7, the rookies. All right. Carr was placed in the 4th tier, which says you can win with him. His peers in the list are Jared Goff, Dak Prescott, Geno Smith, Kirk Cousins, Ryan Tannehill, and Jimmy Garoppolo. CBS explained it like thussin. The best way to describe these guys, They can get you to the playoffs if everything about them breaks in their favor, but you cannot envision a scenario where they take you on a deep playoff run or win you a Super Bowl without a really stout defense, run game combo, or the stars simply aligning. Now, let's kind of dig into that, right? Let's dig into what the reporter said. They can get you to the playoffs if everything about them breaks in their favor, but you cannot envision a scenario where they take you on a deep playoff run or win a Super Bowl without a really stout defense, run game combo, or the stars simply aligning. Well, let's look at it like this. How will the Saints win games this year? Let's kind of delve into that. How will the Saints win games this year? We won't truly know, but if you go based on prior years' experience, and in particularly last year, we only had 7 of them. A big part of what the Saints need to do to win games, especially with Carr coming in, is they need to have a powerful running game. Do the Saints have a potential powerful running game? Alvin Kamara is still one of the best running backs in the NFL. He was severely underutilized last year. He's another guy that has a lot to still give you. He's still very dangerous. And the offense the Saints have built with all these different people around that you have to put spotlights on and pay attention to merely creates more space, which Elvin thrives. He's a satellite back, and satellite backs thrive in a space situation. And if you look at the Saints offense, you're not going to be able to clutter up the line of scrimmage and focus on a run. They're just too dangerous for that. You will get bombed out of the world if you come up in there trying to clutter up the Saints. It's just not that kind of ball game this year. They didn't respect what happened last year because they didn't respect Andy Dalton. They figured if you're going to beat us, it won't. If they're going to beat us, it's got to be Andy Dalton. He's got to be the guy. And Andy Dalton did put up decent statistics, but in crucial moments of the game, he throwing interceptions, holding the ball too long, taking sacks that knock you out of positions. That time, I thought he was working for the opposition. It didn't make sense. You got a veteran quarterback that had seen 10 plus years of football. For him to be taking sacks when he had time to throw the ball away don't make no sense to me. It was just really insane what I was watching from him in many of the moments in games where we could have actually won. It's just, I just don't know. Poor decision making, a lot of that. But the run game, we talk about stout defense and run game. The Saints defense last year was a very solid unit. Now, of course, against the run, they were one of the poorest in the NFL. But the reason for a lot of the failure was because the Saints defense was on the field too much last year. Entirely too much. The Saints were on the field last year. Entirely too much. We knew that. There were games where the Saints was out there for like 28 minutes, 30 minutes in the game. You know what I'm saying? It was time we've watched the pathetic, crap, nasty, stinky offense that we had last year go 3 and out several different series, straight series of them going 3 and out. And the defense had to get back out there and try to stop them people offense and force a turnover to get a Saints off. I remember there were games, and y'all put the games in the chat that I remember we were talking about this today. Games that we would sit up there and watch the Saints offense go 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out, 3 and out. The defense was out there making stops. They were tired, and you can't do that to them. That was super unfair for what the offense was doing last year. The defense had to hold a lot of that, and they just couldn't hold up to it, especially against the run. So what does it take? How will the Saints win games this year? Early on, because we know straight up that Carr will not play in very much football in the preseason, right? We know that. That's from a historical standpoint. You'd be fortunate if we see him for a 2 series out of the entire preseason season, right? When the regular season start, the way for the Saints to start winning games will be because they'll have to learn how to run the ball first. The Saints, I'm not going to say the running room is better than the wide receiver room. I'm not going to say that. But what I'm going to say from a fundamental standpoint is that you want to get your running attack going. You want to get your running attack going. You want to get that going up against the adversaries that you're facing. And this is paramount because the first 4 games of the season is when is actually our preseason, so to speak, because that's when you'll really see the starters, the starting offensive line, our tight ends, our wide receivers, and running backs and QB all get on the same page. It takes live game reps for that to occur. So in the first 4 games of the NFL season, weeks 1 through 4, it's a learning process for them to figure out what plays work the best and ones that don't work, that have more impact for the team. So the best way in many cases to win games during that stretch, and we're going to throw the ball, but we have to learn to run the football and play defense. That's what it comes down to. Running of the football, keeping and we're going to throw this in here because this will kill the Saints last year too, pre-snap penalties. And this bodes well. We talk about talent, and we put the thinking cap here in the great Saint think tank, and we remember from last year what really hurt the team. And it wasn't always injuries. That's the first thing that gloss over because people totally forget all of the small particular things until you remind them. Like, what about the Saints were one of the poorest teams in the NFL last year because of pre-snap penalties? How many people remember all of those false start penalties we were getting? We'd be rolling along, doing well, and then all of a sudden we'll get 3 straight false start penalties. Remember Andrews Pete in one of those games when he had 2 of the 3 straight false start penalties? You see? The pre-snap penalties was something that is caused by a team just not thinking. That is just on you. Pre-snap penalties, not paying attention, not understanding what's going on. So that bodes to the defense of the team. Do they improve upon that? Getting rid of the pre-snap penalties and the things that shoot us in the foot. That is a big part of this thing. But winning games in the first 4 weeks of the season, keeping the turnovers down, keeping the pre-snap penalties down, right? Running of the football consistently to open up the play action to be able to throw the ball down the field, right? That's a part of it. And playing defense. We've got to be able to play better defense. We got to still be able to get to the quarterback. And we still have to prove to people that we can. 2 big questions for the Saints defense coming up in the upcoming season is, can the Saints continue to put pressure on the quarterback, which I believe they will? The bigger question is, can they contain the mobile quarterback threat? Unlike the last several plus years that we had to watch guys run around us last year, we faced pretty much all of the speedy quarterbacks that you can imagine for the NFL to throw at us. We faced those guys last year, except for Hurt, who was hurt during that game, and they put a Gardner Minshew in there, and we made mincemeat of him. But the reality is, that is a big question. And that was a major Achilles heels for the Saints defense. Can they neutralize the mobile QB threat? And the second one is stopping the run. Could they have a better outing this upcoming season than what we seen last year with the combination of David Onyemata, Shai Tuttle, and Kentavious Street? Can guys like Kalen Saunders, Nate Shepard, and Brian Breesy improve in that aspect? And you most simply could look at all 3 of those guys and says, hey, David Onyemata is the baller of that group out of the 3 from last year. But at least you can look at that group and say 2 of the 3 guys we have in here now are better than those 2 or 3 last year. Now, David Onyemata, I don't see a David Onyemata here just yet out of the new guys here. But Kalen Saunders could beat every bit of that. We don't know yet. We'll have to wait and see. But that's a big part of winning it. And we understand how important Carr is to the dynamic. Yes, indeed. We understand that, but Carr is not going to be the main reason why the Saints win games. If the Saints do what they're supposed to do, we'll have the running attack, which will open up the play action. A successful power running attack opens up the play action where we can get down the field. And then once we get the play action done, it's over with. It is over with how he can throw the ball down the field. So It's not totally on Carr, even though Carr has to conduct the offense, keep his interceptions down and turnovers down, lead the offense, and simply play within the offense and use the running attack that the Saints have blessed him with, and all of this fantastic thick ass deep talent rooms that we got in terms of our player talent levels. We use all of this stuff. We should see a lot of success from the Saints offense, unlike what we seen last year, right? And finally, because let me tell you, Carr hears all of this. These guys, and we said this about Cam, they hear all of this stuff. They hear all of this. They hear all of the stuff. They hear all of it. They hear the criticism, they hear the love, they know who they like and who they don't like. When we played Michael Thomas and they had Jeff Duncan, he was talking, and Michael Thomas looked at him and said, You don't want to be writing all that BS. And then he didn't like him. You kind of he answered his question, but didn't throw no love his way. You get what I'm saying? So yeah, they knew who you are. They've been down here for years and they listen to all that stuff. A lot of this motivates them to be better, man. So anyway, let's finish up the article. This makes sense for what Carr has been for his entire career, but there's a reason he wanted to start something new and head to New Orleans. There's a chance for him to raise his stock and maybe enter a new tier next season with a better group of players around him. He's the highest rated quarterback in the NFC South, which, that's not saying much, with Baker Mayfield, Desmond Ritter, and Bryce Young. And he got Baker Mayfield and Desmond Ritter in the tier 6, which is no clue. Bryce Young, obviously, in tier 7 is the rookie group, and we'll soon learn whether this was an accurate assessment of Carr's abilities in the fall. Now, that's a safe, because nobody really wants to go out on a limb, and that's the thing. And I'm going to address the tiers and the quarterback tiers momentarily, but nobody wants to really go out on the limb and say that Carr is the guy that's going to take the Saints in a deep playoff run. Nobody wants to go out on that on that branch. They're not willing to go out on that limb and say he is the guy, because there is no reason to defend, right, whether Carr is a middle of the pack quarterback or not. According to his numbers, and he's been in the league for 10 years, he's the number 6th highest ranked passer currently of all the passers. Well, people look at that and say, okay, well, whatever, right? Well, whatever. No, longevity is key here, right? He's done that mostly as a starter. He fell out of favor with McDaniels, and I think McDaniels ultimately going to get fired. I don't think McDaniels is a good head coach. I think he's more of a coordinator, and he'll slither back to up under Bill Belichick's skirt. So eventually, what I see from Carr for the Saints is like it's a different setup, because you come in here, the Saints have invested a ton of talent in every position. I mean, the tight end room was there until they signed Foster Monroe. You got Taysom Hill in there and Jawan Johnson that's ready to step up. Wide receivers, we went over that. The running backs, we went over that. They even, thickened up the reserves on the offensive line because we dealt with so much injuries last year that they have really good, solid backups with some potential. Billy Price is a really good, solid center they picked up. You got Nick Saldiveri there. When he's healthy, he'll probably end up taking Andrews Pete's guard position, no doubt about it. You're looking at other guys that are there, like Storm Norton, who could play the tackle position, a big guy, a veteran. Don't cost a lot of money, but could help. So the Saints are doing a phenomenal job in investing in talent around Carr, and he comes here at the right time because the Saints are under pressure to win after going backwards from 9-7 to 7-10 last year under Dennis Allen. So the Saints are under supreme pressure to win because they got a lot of the taxpayer money invested in the Superdome. They're looking to bank out with all of the new renovations there. They keep releasing articles about the Superdome and how it looks, and how there's that. They want to bank out, and they do not want them to be the reason why they don't bank out. They don't want the losing of the team, because they know that if the team is losing and they're losing bad, and that hurts the profits of the team. It hurt them last year. It hurts them last year. And they don't like when guys like myself get up here and say, man, how y'all handle this was trash and da 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 da. That hits them in their bottom lines, because guys like myself that spend heavily with the Saints will then withdraw my money and say, listen, you ain't getting this until you give me a better product. Well, you ain't a diehard. No, no, no. I am a diehard, but I'm a smart ass diehard. I'm not a stupid ass. You're not gonna just throw my money away at a team that's disrespecting me by not doing or not honoring me or showing me that they're trying to win by making the proper decisions on the field and off the field, even checking the head coach when you need to, not protecting him blindly because you don't want to do what you're supposed to do because it's going to cost you money. I know. So anyway, this is some of the stuff that Derek Carr knows, and he listens to this, that they consider him a middle of the pack quarterback because he doesn't have any playoff wins, and that's where a lot of this is judged from. You know, what did you do for your team? Did you take them this, that, and the third? You didn't do that with the Raiders because for many years the Raiders was a half a team. You got Raider people out there will tell you that they were a half a team. They were a joke in many cases. They were a half a team and they were pathetic. Now you can't say that about the Saints. The Saints are loaded on offense. Their defense retool on the defensive line. Me personally, I think that they've gotten better in the interior of the defensive line. I think their secondary is solid. Their linebacker could use another veteran linebacker. I'll give you that. We'll kind of lead off into it. That's a perfect segue into our final article. But they're not missing much. But Carr is listening to this and playing with a chip on his shoulder, not just because how he left the Raider country, but to dispel the overall thought process on him being a guy that's just the middle of the pack guy that can't take you anywhere. See, he understands that now, and he came here to win. He said that on several press conferences. I'm in New Orleans because I'm here to win. So you wasn't winning when you was over there with Oakland now. Or with the Raiders, Los Angeles, or whatever the hell you want to call them, Oakland, Los Angeles, Las Vegas, whatever. You wasn't winning over there. Now, obviously not enough for him to come here and say, I come here to win. Well, guess what? Yes, we want you to win, and the Saints want you to win too. So, man, we got a little bit before this kicked off, family. We got a couple of weeks left, and we're going to finally see it. So, y'all need to be excited. I know I'm excited too.